So we actually have, as a pickable service, something that is called SP Project Intern. Okay, and actually, if you were to go in, if you were to go into your selected services grid and press Add Services, at the very bottom, it says SP Project Intern. Okay, so that's what we're getting ready to talk about now. Everything we talked about is exactly the same, other than it does not involve Western Kentucky University. Everything else is exactly the same, other than it does not involve Western Kentucky University, which involves Handshake as well. Okay, so this is a service offering that is actually a service offering that has a cost associated with it, which basically means that if you put SP Project Intern on a service agreement, okay, and it is signed, there's a cost that actually is $2,800. That $2,800 includes the money that would be paid to the client. I'm sorry, money would be paid to the intern, but also the commission that would be paid to the CSM. Okay, so this would be something you would collect commission from. Okay, and these types of projects, well, as an example, the EKU project that has electro dryer and Chase, this is actually going to technically a project intern. So the only difference on this is, instead of going through and putting a project scope together and putting a job description, all that kind of stuff like that, we actually have a better partner through Western Kentucky, or through Eastern Kentucky University, that actually we have a list of about 6 to 8 interns that are waiting for us to call them to say, yes, here's a project. Okay, so we actually have should be a shorter span of placement. The other thing about this, though, and it's probably a little more trickier, is through the MMI project, which is the last one we were just talking about, the Manufacturing Mentoring Internship Program. We being AKA pays that intern directly. Through the project internship, we're not allowed to pay that intern directly. So how are we going to pay them? Okay, and that either falls within one of 2 different ways. Okay, and one way that I think is probably the better way is something I thought about earlier this morning. So the way that WKU would like us to do it would be essentially to still put it on a service project and to essentially discount a service and then have the client pay that intern directly. So in other words, that client would be paying that intern the minimum wage plus the $10 an hour that we're supposed to be paying them. We're discounting the services going back to them. So in other words, it's kind of a pass-through. That's less than ideal, mainly because it obviously it pushes the burden onto the client, and the client is smart enough to see that that's not really to their best interest. So the other way of doing it is potentially, and I still have to talk to them about it, but we could go to one of our partners, such as Bluegrass Train Consortium, the Kentucky Alliance Train Consortium, and we can do the billing through them. So if we went through that route, basically what would happen is, instead of a check coming from the Advantage Kentucky Alliance for that $10 an hour, it would come through Bluegrass Train Consortium or Kentucky Alliance Train Consortium. And again, there's a lot of things that need to be worked out there. Long story short, for now, until I get that set up, it's going to have to go through the client. Okay, so the client would be paying them the minimum wage plus the $10 an hour, which is what ElectroDryer is doing, by the way. We basically discounted their very first month by $2,000 to offset the entire cost of the program itself. So not ideal, but through Western Kentucky University's guidance, that's what we have to do. Questions?
So the students could be coming from any university. It doesn't necessarily have to be EKU. It could be U of L. It could be any Kentucky university. Is that correct?
Any Kentucky university that has a relationship with AKA, yes.
Okay.
Is there any limit to the number of these we can do?
Nope, not at all. Because it's a service offer we're putting on a project itself, so none at all. So, but again, the whole part of this. So the reason why the project is important, other than what I think is the obvious, but the other aspect about that is that's part of the discussion we're having with the universities. Is that this is an internship that actually has something meaningful for that student to be part of. It's not their typical interns. Okay, so the people that we're talking to, Canal University of Louisville, Dr. Easterling at EKU, they love the idea that there's an actual focused project that has a full scope that this intern is part of. That for them is the meat. That's for them is the reason why they are pushing this with their interns. It has nothing to do with the extra money. It's more about this is going to give them real world experience, and that's the reason why the project is important. So if you had, and I know Bill, you had one where they were just looking for an intern. They didn't really want a project; they just wanted the intern itself. And what we did was we just basically passed that description to a couple of universities and allowed them to handle it. We're out of it because for us, if the project is not a part of it, there's no reason for us to be in the middle of it, and we're not. We pass it over to them and let them handle it. Other questions?
So does this have to be a university student? I mean, could this be somebody that has freshly graduated, and I guess that would be more like an apprenticeship kind of thing, but could you expand it on to that?
I guess anything's possible, but as of right now, this is about internships and students in the program. So when you talk to most of the universities and you talk to the professors and the deans, one of the things that most of them really want to do is they want to get their students real life in industry experience, and this is our way of helping them do that, which means it's creating a stronger, better, more robust relationship with us in that university. If it's somebody who's not a university student right now, that all goes away. So there's no reason for us to do it. And if they just want to hire somebody who graduated last year, well, that's called an employee at that point, not the same.
Yeah, but to Elizabeth's point, I'm just picking up on what she's laying down. This is a great way for employees to vet someone maybe they want to hire, but aren't 100% sure they want them to get a little bit of training. We could segue in that. Maybe that's an offline discussion.
Actually, that's a great direction. I wasn't going there. So if they wanted to bring somebody on board to test them out as a 1099, we could probably do the same program. I see no reason why we wouldn't be able to do it that way. So that is really taking out one of the three partners, which is the university. That is really more of a program between us, AKA, and the manufacturer. The university is completely taken out of the equation at that point, which is probably fine.
Yeah, that falls within the workforce directive that we will have going forward.
Yep. So good idea and good thought thread, Elizabeth. That took us down that rabbit hole. Any other questions, concerns, or statements before I move on to the next one?
Yeah, Scott, I'm just thinking about, since one of our big drivers is to get old stalled contracts going. And I'm sitting here thinking about probably $70,000 in 3 contracts. One of them being with Bill Rouse, Indy Honeycomb, one being with Dwight, Alltech, and one being with Kent out there on that trailer manufacturer, Kent. I can't remember their name. But if those are already on the books and they're, say, 30 grand a piece, and the contracts have stalled and for all the COVID reasons and everything else, what do we want the CSM to sell in those cases to an already existing contract? Do we want a new agreement with a couple of days on it, or what?
So it would be a new agreement that would have the internship plus the mentorship.
Okay.
And the way we would sell that would be, hey, we've been waiting 8 months to get this thing moving. It's obvious that we're both having issues with this. Why don't we find an intern? And the intern will actually help us keep things online, but also help you, giving you the extra pair of hands that you don't currently have. We will work with that intern, making sure that they have guidance and mentorship. And we'll put a project together specifically for that, which would be in addition to their other project. And that would be the way that I would discuss it with a client.
Okay. Thank you.
Mm-hmm. Any other questions before I move on to the AIM 3D manufacturing mentoring? You got to love all these damn names. Manufacturing mentoring internship. All right. So this is a program that is about 3D printing. Okay. So first and foremost, it starts off with a readiness assessment. That readiness assessment, it's a stupid name for it because all it really is a link on a cloud document that says, give me your information, who you are, what's your name, and why you want to work with us. Okay, so there's a grant involved for this project itself. It starts off with that readiness assessment, and anybody that we are talking to, whether they're interested or not, should start off with that readiness assessment, because this is a live document that University of Louisville keeps on helping everybody understand how many people we're talking to. Okay, so as an example, we had a conversation the other day with Pat Feely, Dwight, right? And I haven't looked, but did you go through and fill out that assessment for Pat Feely yet?
No, remember that was what we forwarded to Carlos, his attorney.
That's right. That's right. Okay, that's a good point. So that helps us keep track of who we're talking to. And thank you for the reminder. We should probably send, or if you wouldn't mind, why don't you send a reminder to Carlos about that? And again, we just want to send a link. So just as a reminder, we had a conversation that involved the CSMs, Sherry, myself, and Greg, talking about how this program is going to work. That is a Word document that Sherry put together. That is an internal document that is not branded, and it really should not be sent out to anybody. So when we're sending out that readiness assessment, it should simply be just a link itself for them to click on. Shouldn't have any of the other information on it. But so that readiness assessment is basically give me your name, give me your contact information, and why do you want to be part of this? Okay. After that, then we reach out to them. We being AKA reaches out to them and has a conversation with them about that. Okay. It helps them understand what they're getting themselves into. This project itself, if you're to boil it down, okay, so you have the University of Louisville that has 3D printing capabilities. They have students, professors, apparatus, assets, capabilities. They have all this stuff waiting for somebody to use it, okay? The grant itself is supposed to identify somebody who wants to learn a little bit more about metal, specifically metal 3D printing. Okay, that's really what the purpose of the grant is it's trying to identify somebody who wants to do metal 3D printing. Okay, we talk with that individual first and foremost and help them understand what that grant is about, the purpose of it, and there's write-ups here that goes into it. Okay, but really, if it's a company who, let's say that they manufacture mouses, you know, a mouse for a 3D printer, for a computer, a laptop, and let's say they wanted to redo this wheel, this ball here, and make it a metal wheel, and they don't know anything about 3D printing, let alone metal 3D printing. They certainly don't have any of the equipment, but they want to know something about it. As far as I'm concerned, that is a good candidate for this, okay? Because what they're going to get is they're going to be able to leverage University of Louisville's 3D printing apparatus with the whole team there that knows how to use it for the benefit of them and their project, okay? So the one thing that certainly that everybody needs to understand, though, is that these projects actually come with 2 interns, okay? First of all, there's an intern that is going to be assigned to this project through University of Louisville that actually is going to be focused and actually scoped on just working with that company, doing all the different things that they need to do, okay? The problem with all these types of programs, though, is there's no beginning, there's just a middle, and there's no real ending. What I mean by that is people coming into these types of opportunities have no real strategy on how they're going to use it. All they know is they want to do it. they have no end game on what's going to happen, what are they going to learn, and how they're going to apply it for tomorrow. They just want to, there's grant money for them to use this technical equipment and all these assets, and they're going to go in and do something with it, but they have no idea how to monetize it, what to do next, or any of those kind of things. And that's where the project comes into play. Okay, so the project is supposed to start off with a strategy. Why are we going to be doing this? The middle, for lack of better words, is working with the University of Louisville labs and such. The ending is, okay, after we're outside the labs, what are you going to do with it afterwards? There's a beginning, a middle, and an end. The project itself can be anything that would propel that project from moving forward. So that could be voice of customer, research. It could be a business development. It could be engineering. It could be literally anything that would help support that project. Okay, so the CSM would put an actual project together that would involve the lab aspect. Okay, Universal Louisville, the grant pays for 80% of the lab portion of this. The company would be responsible for 20% of it. And then on top of that, there's the project that is also the cost that goes to the client. That project cost could very easily go through one of our training consortium friends, Bluegrass Training Consortium or Kentucky Lions Training Consortium, or SCED for that matter. Okay, so again, it's the exact same program as what we've been talking about. The only difference is it also includes 3D printing. Okay, they are looking actually for only 2 individuals, and we've already talked to 5 or 6 people. There's probably a couple good fits already. But there's opportunity. What I would say is there's most likely, well, first of all, nobody signed up for it to actually been okayed. Okay, so the process starts off with, first of all, the CSM having a conversation with somebody who's interested, helping them understand what it is. Then we actually have to set up a meeting with University of Louisville for them to truly understand from University of Louisville's standpoint how everything is working. At that point, we put a project scope together, get it all signed. Okay, this has the project with the mentoring and all that kind of stuff like that as well. It has the intern from our standpoint, just like all the other projects. It also has an intern from University of Louisville standpoint with all their projects and standpoint, right? And then we run a project like normal. It works great up here, guys. What questions do you have for that?
Scott, I see one key difference on that one. We are not the expert. Our project manager would not be the expert on that one. Is that correct?
So the project manager is going to be the expert on the project, which is separate from the Universal Louisville working with their assets. Yeah, so Universal Louisville is going to actually be the experts and specialists for the 3D printing part of it. But that is just part of the scope of this work. Okay, the project is coming up with a strategy. What are you going to do? And you can use it like this part of that scope of work is going to involve University of Louisville's lab. Okay, but there's support that still needs to be on there. So as an example, let's say that they had an idea for a new product. Okay, and they want to create a whole bunch of different types of prototypes through the metal printing, which is fine. Okay, but there's still support because afterwards, once they learn if this is something they want to do or not, they still have something that they need to do after they've learned from the Universal Louisville labs. That project is going to come from us with our specialists going to be attached to it for the mentoring.
Is there a timeline with this? Because I mean, I've never done a prototype. From what I understand, it's a lot of try and retry and tweak this, tweak that kind of thing. So is there a timeline on it? I know sometimes prototypes can take years, if not longer.
Well, prototypes don't normally take years, and actually, I've ran through lots of prototypes in a matter of weeks. Okay, so it's a matter of the team and passion and structure and all that kind of stuff like that. So first of all, the grant itself, I believe, it's either a 2 or a 3-year grant. I think it's a 2-year grant. So the idea is that we truly want to identify 2 individuals that we're going to be moving forward with by probably first quarter of next year. And realistically, they're talking about somewhere between 3 to 6 months, and they'll probably be done with their project. So again, somebody who prototyping doesn't have to take years. Anyone who takes years to do prototypes, by the time they come up with whatever they're going to come up with, is out of date anyway. So that's bad. That's bad ID. Any other questions or concerns?
So it sounds like the U of L project, besides 3D printing, they need to contain some AKA deliverable services.
The scope of work for the 3D printing includes the Universal Louisville part and a project that AKA is running. The part that AKA is running is going to involve, just like a normal project, with the scope of work specifically for that project in support of what they're doing at Universal Louisville.
And how does it work if they are in Eastern Kentucky, but the 3D printer is at U of L? So are they?
Universal Louisville is a statewide organization. They could care less as long as it's in Kentucky.
Right, but I guess what I'm saying is, I mean, for our client, they're gonna have to go to U of L to learn their 3D processes and that kind of thing.
They probably
Or
will,
are they
yes.
even, okay. Or are they even learning the process, or are they just letting the intern do the process for them? They're saying, we want to create the wheel on the mouse, you know, you all come up with it and then pass it on to us.
I think I think we're kind of putting the cart in front of the horse at this point. The fact of the matter is we need to identify some companies who want to do it. They understand by part of our discussion that it involves Universal Louisville. And if they happen to be in Pikeville, yeah, they're going to be expected to drive to Louisville. If they don't want to do that, then they're not a good fit for the project.
Okay.
So I'd like to hear from the CSMs. Bill, Dwight, Kent. And again, I do want to talk, I know we're running, or actually past time at this point. I do want to talk to you about the Southeast Trade Adjustment Assistance Center, CTAC. But I want to make sure that, you know, is everything we've talked about thus far this morning relatively clear to you guys?
Yeah, I think I can follow along with what you're talking about, Scott.
Dwight?
Scott, on the last one, the one at Louisville there, a little confused on the financing side of it. I know you said we could wrap that into several different things, but if you can just rehash what those financial options were on that third one.
Okay, so the project itself, don't look at it as a project. Take it more of it as a scope of work for each. So we're looking for 2 scopes of work, okay? Each one of those scopes of work actually has 2, for lack of better words, projects that are attached to that scope of work. One of those is the Universal Louisville activities, the interaction with the university labs and all the stuff that's contained with that. The other part is AKA's part of making sure that people are not going to be wasting Universal Louisville's time and our time, and making sure that after they learn whatever they're going to learn, they're going to apply it in some meaningful way. And that's probably the better way of stating it, is right now people are using university technologies and capabilities without any concern or care of what they're going to do, how they're going to monetize it, any of that. They don't care about that. All they know is there's capabilities there and we're going to try to use it. Our part of this is helping whoever is going to use those capabilities. They have a reason for coming to them in the first place. And then after they use them, there's what's going to happen tomorrow. So that part of that scope is going to come from AKA, which is an actual physical project that we're going to put together that has the normal cost structures with it, with a normal internship, which would actually have the project intern to be attached to it. Okay, so part of that project is going to have the normal commission-based financials as normal. Okay, the Universal Louisville part of it, actually, there is money that actually built into that grant that will get some commission work to the guys, to you guys. Whoops. Did I lose you guys? Are you still with me?
With you.
Hello?
Still here.
Yeah, we're with you.
Okay, well, my camera just shut down. So as long as I'm still talking, I'll keep going. Can you guys see my screen still or no?
No.
Okay, well, I'm still talking, so we'll continue going down that road. So that makes sense, Dwight?
It does. We can work through that first one, depending on what comes to play with it. But I don't know if I'm 100% clear on that.
I can tell you what I'm not clear on. I don't understand the role of the intern in that one. Could you clarify that a little bit?
So
Now we cannot hear you.
I think we did lose it.
Yeah, it looks like he.
Looks like you're muted, Scott.
can you hear me now?
Yes.
Yes.
Hi. Gotta love technology, right? I love virtual meetings. Okay, so the role of the intern. So if you look at it like on that scope of work, the project that AK is involved in, if you look at that as it is the special project intern, if it's that type of a service, that's what we're talking about. So what I mean by that is you're still going to put a scope of work for the project. The intern is still going to be in support of that project that AK is mentoring, is going to be mentoring that project. So let's say that they're trying something new, and the project that AK is working on is a research project. Okay, and let's say Gordon and his team is doing that. Okay, so the intern could very well be a research assistant, or it could be somebody who's good at creating prototypes, or it could be somebody who wants to do marketing and branding. Okay, so Gordon and his team would be working with that intern to actually make sure all those pieces are in place. That is part of the scope. The other part of the scope is the University of Louisville and their technologies and capabilities. Does that make more sense or better sense?
Yep.
Gordon, you're awfully quiet there, buddy.
As I understand it, let's say we have a client that signs up for one of my services called new product development. That will be a project that Kirk would lead through the ideation phase, design phase, and so forth and so on. I assume that new product development project will be billed to the client at full tilt rate. But if we have to use the 3D lab at U of L, the client has the option to go use the 3D lab at U of L along with U of L interns and faculty members to actually prototype that product that we've wrapped into our overall new product development project.
Correct.
So we have options to use interns either for the business development side or for the actual 3D side, right?
Correct. Yes.
All right. It's pretty simple.
So are the interns then more or less being the mentor to the client, teaching them how to use the 3D material if they want that, or are they okay?
So there are two interns for the 3D metal printing. Okay, one intern is a University of Louisville student that we have nothing to do with. University of Louisville is assigning an intern to actually manage the metal printing capabilities, making sure they're getting this stuff done. Our intern that we are putting together can be any intern from any university, and it's a support of our scope of work, our project. So from Gordon's point of view, what he was just talking about, this could be somebody who is really good at ideation, or it could be somebody, it could be a 3D CAD person. It's about the project that we are managing for the benefit of the client that is separate from the University of Louisville capabilities.
Scott,
Any other? Yes.
One question on the U of L side, is that as far as what is discovered, the ownership of the knowledge or process that U of L does, that's not necessarily, that could be subject to U of L owning that, correct?
So that's something that bubbled up earlier so AKA, whenever we are doing any of our activities, 100% of them, they are owned by the client. So if we are helping them with build something new or any new processes, they own it. Okay, so the true question here is who is AKA's client? Okay, is University of Louisville our client, or is the client our client? And I would argue and state, and I've already argued with University of Louisville about this, it's a client. Okay, so as far as I'm concerned, until we are told otherwise, the project that we are putting in place is with the client, which means they own all IP. So if we went through a research project and we had an intern that's helping them with that research project, the client owns that research. So anything that the University of Louisville is doing on University of Louisville properties with University of Louisville internships or professors or any of those things, if they had some assistance in helping develop some IP, then they then would have some co-ownership there. The project we're talking about, which is part of the scope that AKA is mentoring and such, our agreement is with the client, not University of Louisville. Any other questions before I move on to the last topic, which is Southeast Trade Adjustment Assistance Center?